Well, I'm fresh from another, let's say, thrilling instant classic, and we're going to talk a lot about that in Crunch Time coming up in this show, JB. But I'll tell you, for all the fatigue I feel around this point in the season, I mean, that's the 17th game Brockport hosting Cortland that I've attended this season. It is. That type of game rejuvenates you at this point in the season. It was incredible, I'll tell you.
Yeah, and you must be, maybe, do you now have like an MVP parking spot with Cortland? Because when you show up to their games, they manage to pull them out in the craziest and narrowest of fashions, Frank. There's some kind of mayor magic happening with these Red Dragons. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I didn't show up at the Cortland-Susquehanna game last year, and that was their last loss 22 games ago. They're on a 21-game winning streak right now. So I don't know. There may be something to it. On the other hand, Brockport has revoked all privileges from me after what happened on Saturday. So I will not probably be allowed ever again in Brockport.
I think I'm now finally invited back into the Forest after my one of my several picks were wrong this weekend. Congratulations to Coach Cat and the Foresters for a big 35-27 victory. We'll get into that a little later.
I did enjoy the tweet asking me my favorite memories, favorite games, favorite players this season, and it's tough to pick. It's like picking favorite kids at this point. But AJ Jackson, Joe Rapetti, just so many performances. Jalen Bradford against Joe Rapetti that one night was just incredible to watch that back and forth. And the Ursinus
Grove
game.
City game you saw.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that was incredible as well. Lake Forest, Illinois College was a great, Region 5 game early in the season. Who knew it would lead to all this ultimately? Getting to see Aurora and North Central performing at Aurora even in week 2 to kick off their season for North Central was, a great thing to be able to do. The perk with 21,000 people in it, even though the Whitewater season's kind of gone up in flames in this whole thing. It was still great to see that be a part of that as well. I mean, this has been a great season. The only thing I really hate about this season is I feel like a lot of it won't make sense to people by the time Sunday is done. And we've tried our best to relate just what's going on here to them. And still, it's not going to reach them. But even the coaches that kind of understand it, behind the scenes, we're hearing a lot of consternation that advice that was given wasn't taken. Players kind of looking at this like it's NPI stuff. For as much as we understand it, we don't. If the system isn't understandable in any way, shape, or form, then maybe the system needs to be revised somehow, some way. And then even how the brackets are going to work right now, there doesn't seem to be much common sense about some of the aspects like conference foes shouldn't face each other at least for one game for each of those teams. Even if you're considering the first round, those 8 games now, the round of 32 shouldn't have conference versus conference either. Pony up the money there, NCAA. Pony up the money a little bit on stuff like that. That's just not right. But you didn't get to travel with me much except for the lacrosse RPI game and the Union Utica game as well. I mean, what are your memories so far this season, just from a viewer's perspective?
Yeah, I mean, just the exciting finishes week in, week out, sort of the unpredictability of things. You think some team is going in this one direction and then it switches. I mean, I'm thinking back from week 1 when we were just kind of blown away by the size and athleticism of lacrosse and thinking, oh wow, these guys must be national championship contenders. I mean, we're like I'm like 6 foot 225 and I'm a twerp compared to all these guys. And then all of a sudden we see things start getting a little rocky for them. And now all of a sudden, here we are with one game left to play in the regular season. Like maybe they'll squeak into the playoffs and go on a run. We don't know. That's what kind of makes this stuff fun. And this week after week, just getting a chance to meet the players from all these different schools and colleges across the country. That's really the best part of this gig for me, is just getting to hear the stories of the players and kind of the extended kind of family that we have here in Division III. It's really great.
Indeed, and they tune in to this show to hear about the games of the previous week, what's going to happen in the next week. So let's give them what they're coming here for each week in our extended family. You are watching Season 17, the Crunchtime show of In the Huddle. So as we discussed, we're going to have a big focus on crunch time. We got 10 games, which is the least we've covered all season, but it has a lot more in-depth view of some games that have pivotal moments in them that will, affect the rest of Division 3 because of this interrelation with NPI at this point playing out. We'll take a brief look at NPI, not too deep, because we're going to tell you a lot more throughout the rest of the week on Twitter about things to look for. Friday's show, we'll bring it all to a head for you so you're ready to go for Saturday and how it's going to work. And we'll also explain what our coverage looks like for the rest of this season toward the end of the show. But before anything else, my colleague over here, James Baker, is going to give you his 30,000-foot view about Week 10. Hit it!
Well, it was a championship Saturday, Frank. We saw 13 teams punch their ticket to the playoffs. We thought it might be 14. We were a teeny bit off on the HCAC, I think, but no big deal. We got like 98% of it right, I guess. But most of the field is starting to fill in. There's still 10 spots open for more Pool A conference champions to punch their tickets this weekend. So, the interesting thing for me, Frank, is that I thought in some of these big games from Week 10 that the underdogs would win, and they didn't. And then I also thought there were games where the favorites would win, and they didn't. So I was wrong about a lot of stuff this past weekend. My worst predictions outcome of the season. But hey, that's what makes watching football fun. Any given Saturday, anything can happen. And, we'll have some fun talking about some of those upsets and not so upsets that we saw in Week 10.
Well, then let's get to it. It's time for the highlights. It's time for crunch time for week number 10 of the 2024 Division III college football season. There you go. We'll start in Region 1 with Hudson at Endicott. And here in the first quarter, here's a field goal attempt blocked from 23 yards out. David Constantine recovers this. It was blocked by Keenan Scullin, and it puts Endicott in business. 5:58 left first quarter. Javier Cosme Diaz with a 5-yard touchdown run makes it 7-0 Endicott. The Gulls go and get more points here in the first quarter as Cosme Diaz, again, a 2-yard touchdown run with 24 seconds left first quarter makes it 14-0. We'll go to the second quarter, 2 minutes into it. Kennedy Charles gets a 43-yard touchdown pass from Clayton Marengi to make it 22-0 Endicott. And then just before the end of the first half, look at Shane Elward taking the pitch back and throwing Adam Goodfellow this touchdown from 22 yards out to make it 29-0 Endicott. We'll leave in the background here an interception by Endicott. As we tell you, they win 32-6. Max Clark from Hudson, 14 for 28, 98 yards, 1 passing touchdown and interception. Brian Mateer, from Endicott, the running back, has 18 rushes, 143 yards, and Endicott clinches the CNE title. Then also Springfield at Merchant Marine Academy. 6 minutes into the game, Springfield's Logan Schenk gets a 10-yard touchdown pass from Jacob Sylvester and make it 7-0, Springfield Pride leading. 14 seconds into the second quarter, here's Blaine Hart getting a 16-yard touchdown pass from Jacob Sylvester, expanding the lead to 14-0 Springfield. 9 minutes later, Joe Cannizzaro just bowling balls his way into the end zone from 44 yards out to give the Pride a 21-0 lead. And then again from Canizero, third quarter, 6:32 left. He gets a 1-yard touchdown run to make it 28-0. In the ensuing drive for Merchant Marine, not much good going on here as Gervialota fumbles the snap, and it is landed on by Billy Carr for Springfield. Springfield wins this game easily, 42-7. Alota, 9 for 13, 126 yards, 1 passing touchdown. Arsen Shatefan from Springfield, 28 rushes, 173 yards, and 2 rushing touchdowns. I'm a little surprised by that Merchant Marine Springfield score there, JB. And Springfield rolling, obviously, right on the cusp at the number 8 slot in NPI for that protected number 2 seed, perhaps. They're not guaranteed it, though. A lot more on that later. But they are playing with pride, no doubt. Still have SUNY Maritime, though, to get through next week. And then Coast Guard against Merchant Marine. So a lot of stuff to look forward to for the new MAC next week. But first, how about some other scores in Region 1?
Yeah, well, we'll run through a couple of them here. First, you kind of have to go with number 1 with Curry with this 47-41 win. Their running back, Monty Quinn, ripped off a 381-yard, 4-touchdown game. Just a crazy statistic. One that's like the best in not only a school record, but the highest rushing total in Division III. So that was a great win for them Spicy Boys, which made, the old Liberty League posting boards where we kind of met from back in the day. That was kind of funny there. Wesleyan beat Trinity in Hartford. That was a game that we thought that the Bantams were going to win, but lo and behold, the Cardinals drive up, 91, and they get a victory over the favored, Trinity team there, which was kind of a surprise. And then further down, you can see we had picked this Widener FDU Forum game. I was thinking that this was a chance for the Devils to get their 6th conference win, and didn't pan out that way. But Widener is in kind of survival mode right now. That gets them to 5-4, I believe. They put in a bid for an ECAC Bowl. They're trying to make the postseason, and we'll see what happens there. And as you mentioned before, SUNY Maritime, if they had lost this game against Coast Guard, then Springfield would have won the new MAC. But the Privateers will have a chance to take down the Pride at their home field there in Throg's Neck this Saturday. And then last but not least, Colby takes the CBB trophy in the last kickoff of the evening. And I guess I should shout out to Tufts, who, even though I think that the record-wise may be the same as as Trinity or what have you, they're the runner-up in the NESCAC. I don't know how that all works out. I viewed that game as sort of like the bronze medal game between them and Middlebury. You'd think that Trinity would be the runner-up, but who knows. Anyway, NESCAC, it was nice playing with you this week, this season. Have a good off season. We'll see you next year.
Let's go to Region 2, where it was Cortland traveling to Brockport. First quarter, 11:18 left. Nolan Sluka gets a 28-yard touchdown pass from Ben Gasella to give Brockport an early 7-0 lead in this game. Then, just 2 minutes later, look at this punt block. Liam Neely gets the block, and Kai Tran lands on it for Brockport in the end zone to expand the lead to 14-0. Brockport just 6 minutes into it. Second quarter, 10:55 left. Cortland responds as Jason Ziva finds a 47-yard touchdown pass from Zach Boyce to make it 14-7. Brockport still leading. 3 minutes later, though, Sluka again. This time a 29-yard touchdown pass from Gasella makes it 21-7 Brockport. Before halftime, Cortland rallies, so 4:26 left in the second quarter. Ethan Gallo with a 6-yard touchdown run to make it 21-14. It's just a 7-point lead for Brockport at that point. Then look at this interception by Naj John Lubin for Cortland. With 1:55 left, he gives his team a chance to maybe tie before halftime, but instead they will rely on Mike Beloga for this 28-yard field goal to make it 21-17 at halftime, Brockport leading. Third quarter, Cortland drives, but they can't quite get a touchdown, so Beloga again gets this 25-yard field goal with 7:56 left in the third. 21-20, Brockport leads. They would expand the lead again, though. 15 seconds into the fourth quarter, here is Brian Caldwell Jr. with the 37-yard touchdown pass from Ben Gasella, 28-20, Brockport leading. 3.5 minutes later, Cortland responds. Sam Cotton, a 19-yard touchdown pass from Zach Boyce, but they'll miss the 2-point conversion, making it still 28-26 Brockport. Eventually, Cortland gets the ball back. Let's look at this drive at the end of the game. as Zach Boyce finds Joe Klein for 12 yards, and then eventually he'll find Ethan Gallo for 7 yards and a first down again to get to around midfield. After an incompletion on first down, he'll find Sam Cotton for 8 yards. 2nd and 2 leads to 3rd and 2. Zach Boyce running again, this time for 10 yards for the first down. And he's gotten his team in business to the 34-yard line of Brockport, but they struggle here, eventually leading to a 4th and 4. He finds C.J. Messina for the first down, keeps the drive alive. Eventually, this leads to a long field goal from 38 yards by Mike Beloga, and he is good with the field goal, and he gives the team a lead for the first time, 29-28 in the game. But in the ensuing kickoff, it's Brockport getting down to the Cortland 33-yard line with a chance. But with Casella out due to an injury, Anthony Vino is intercepted by Naz John Lubin again, and that would do it. Cortland wins an instant classic, 29-28 over Brockport. They trailed 21-17 at the half. Casella, 15 for 32 for 236 yards, 3 passing touchdowns and an interception. Mike Beloga, the game-winning 38-yard field goal. We'll continue in Region 2 with Case Western Reserve at Grove City. Second quarter, 1:55 left. Nico Flotti gets a 15-yard touchdown run here for a 16-0 lead by Grove City. They would expand that lead into the third quarter, 7:03 left, as Ryan Heckathorn finds an 8-yard touchdown pass from Logan Pfeiffer to make it 23-0 Grove City. Case would try to come back. 22 seconds left third quarter. Noah Coyne gets a 5-yard touchdown pass from Aaron Phillips. It's 23-7 Grove City, still leading. Fourth quarter, 5 minutes into it. Dylan Cave, a 5-yard touchdown pass from Phillips, makes it 23-13, so getting closer. But Grove City pushes them away with 2:37 left. Nico Flotti again, a 4-yard touchdown run, makes it 30-13. Eventually the final score would be 30-20, Grove City winning. Dylan Cave for Case, 8 catches, 160 yards, 1 receiving touchdown. Nico Flotti from Grove City, 29 rushes, 144 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. And Grove City is at number 24 in the NPI rankings. Finally, in Region 2, Dickinson at Johns Hopkins. After a scoreless first quarter, 33 seconds into the second quarter, it's Robbie Enright getting a 55-yard touchdown pass from James Ranello. Doing most of the work was Enright here. 7-0 lead, Johns Hopkins. 7 minutes later, Cole Crotty gets a 9-yard touchdown pass from Ranello to make it 13-0, the Blue Jays leading the game. And then a minute later, look at this, Carson Bordeaux with the 28-yard scoop and score. And that would really put things up for Johns Hopkins, 20-0. Third quarter, 2:50 left. Watch here on this 4th and 10, a last chance for Dickinson to try to get into this game, but Egbert's incomplete, and that would do it as Johns Hopkins wins the game 30-0. Hopkins held Dickinson to 2.6 yards per play in the day, and Ranello, 9 for 15, 137 yards, 2 passing touchdowns. That gives Hopkins the Centennial Conference's Pool A bid. JB, my goodness, just going back to that Cortland-Brockport game, it's one that I will remember for a long time to come, trying to get every score on video. I was hustling. I mean, what did it look like from a spectator's point of view online? Was it as exciting for you to watch that thing?
You know, I was just having flashbacks of the Stag Bowl and just seeing, Zach Boyce just refuse to lose. I mean, that guy just came up with plays. He, moves the chains. Even if they don't have the same caliber of wide receivers as they did in their championship year, he's still finding guys. He's willing his team to victory. The defense making key stops when they need to. Players like, I think he's a sophomore now, but he was a freshman last year. Nazir Jean Lubin, outstanding. Those interceptions. He's always there for a big play. He was a big part of that championship team last year. Still doing the same thing. So yeah, I mean, the Dragons just have a special group, and they just have this "don't say die" attitude, and they figure out ways to win close games. And you've been right on the sidelines for at least 3 or 4 of them now. Anyway, let's jump into the rest of what we saw in Region 2. I'll be pretty quick here. There weren't a ton of surprises. I want to give a shout out to Moravian. They've clinched a spot in the Chesapeake Bowl for basically second place in the Landmark. Really good season for them. I think they're right around 7 wins now, and so they've booked a postseason bowl bid. It'll be interesting to see who they face in the postseason. Bethany, hey. 27 games with no victories, and they finally got off the schneid with a 21-13 win over St. Vincent in the Pack. That's got to be a relief for the Bison fans and families to finally get that win after all these years of struggling. So congratulations to them. Ithaca we saw win big, 41-0. And it sure feels like this Bombers team, Frank, is peaking right at the perfect time to go into a really big game against Cortland in the Cortica Jug. The Bombers are on the outside looking in from a playoff perspective, but upsetting Cortland, who knows? Your Sinus probably locking up a Pool C bid from the Centennial with a 34-0 win over Gettysburg. And then finally, a shout out to our friends up in Muhlenberg. They kicked a last-second field goal to beat Franklin and Marshall 24-23, and they are effectively in the postseason as part of the MAC Centennial Bowl, so congratulations to them. I know it's been a rougher season for Mules fans than they would have liked, but hey, they're still getting bonus football in Week 12, which I'm sure they're happy about.
Indeed, and time to go to Region 3, just one game here, and that is Mary Hardin-Baylor at Hardin-Simmons, Part 2. With Hardin-Simmons up 10-3, Mary Hardin-Baylor punts, but eventually here, Damian Gomez gets the return to go 42 yards to Mary Hardin-Baylor's 7-yard line. That was a key play, as one play later, Braylon Henry gets a 7-yard touchdown run to make it 17-3 Cowboys. It would become 20-3 thanks to this big play. Just before halftime, Jake Wright is intercepted by a Keon House, who gets the ball into field goal range, and as I said, it was 20-3 at halftime, Hardin-Simmons leading. In the third quarter, 8:10 left, Derek Roberson gets a 7-yard touchdown run to make it 27-3 Cowboys leading in this game, but Mary Hardin-Baylor would come back. 10:51 left, fourth quarter. Dante Blake, a 4-yard touchdown run, plus the 2-point conversion being good, made it 27-11, 16-point game. Later on in the fourth, 5 minutes left, Dante Blake again, a 2-yard touchdown run, again the 2-point conversion good, so suddenly it's 27-19, a one-possession game. The Crew would get the ball back with about a minute left. In 4th and 8 here from the 40-yard line, it is incomplete, and that would do it. Hardin-Simmons holds on to win again against the Crew, 27-19. Jake Wright from the Crew had a 15-for-23 day, 193 yards and 2 interceptions. Braylon Henry for Hardin-Simmons, 28 rushes, 85 yards, 1 rushing touchdown. Charlie Patterson from Hardin-Simmons, 3 sacks, included inside 4.5 tackles for loss. Well, this one was a lot better, that's for sure, compared to the first go-around, as Mary Hardin-Baylor would not say die there. 24 points down, got the 8, and was trying to get the final 8 to tie it, but just couldn't get there, JB. It seems to be a special season for Hardin-Simmons, and who knows, maybe they make a championship run here, the way they're playing and finding ways to win too. They don't always win pretty, the Cowboys, but they are finding ways for sure to win games or to hold teams off at the end of the day. What are your thoughts there as we lead into other scores in Region 3?
Yeah, my biggest question mark will be what happens to the Crusaders, because they are sitting, I think, at 37 in the NPI list, which is really just right on the borderline there. They will have a game next weekend that they should win, and will they sneak in? Maybe, maybe not. I think there's a lot of things that need to unfold for them to get a Pool C bid, but you never know. Elsewhere in Region 3, I really want to focus mostly on just 3 games, and I'll kind of go in reverse order. Brevard losing to NC Wesleyan 24-30 was a little bit of a surprise, and then it gave effectively Maryville, who we have at the top of these scores, with a 47-7 win over Greensboro, effectively won the USA South title. Cause, reaction, Brevard goes down and Maryville benefits. We'll be curious to see where they end up in the playoff field come Sunday night. And then last but not least, Randolph-Macon with a convincing 35-7 win over Ferrum. These Yellow Jackets are going to go back to the playoffs. They won the ODAC for another year in a row, and they look like a strong team going into the playoffs. I also will shout out too quickly, Center, Barry, and Trinity of Texas all won their games. So we have a 3-car pileup in the SAA, and from all the projections I'm seeing, they expect all these teams to get in. So, Texas of Trinity, that's the one that's going to be on the blooper reel for a long time. Nice one, James.
Oh,
Okay.
it's so staying in,
On to
too.
the
It
next.
is so staying in. The Texas of Trinity. Oh, God. We can't write this stuff. You know what? I'm going to protect you at this point or save you here and say it's time to go to regions 4 through 6, and we're going to start in the WEAC with Stout at Oshkosh. Second quarter, 2:47 left. Stout's Adam Moen gets an 8-yard touchdown run. We already had a lot of scoring in this game. This made it 28-14 Stout at that point. We'll go to the third quarter, 12-12 left. Tucker Hankinson gets a 34-yard touchdown pass from Moen to extend the lead to 21 points, 35-14, Stout leading Oshkosh. In the third quarter, still 7:20 left. Cade Euler gets a 22-yard touchdown pass from Brooks Blount to make a comeback attempt here, 35-21, Oshkosh trailing, but Stout responds as Patrick Corcoran with 3:27 left third quarter gets a 23-yard touchdown pass from Moen. Again, 21-point lead, 42-21. Oshkosh rallies. Fourth quarter, 14:24 left. Dan Feiner, a 16-yard touchdown pass from Blount, makes it 42-28. And then watch this punt block by Oshkosh with 11:56 left in the fourth quarter. It is going to put them in a position to eventually get a Justice Lovelace 16-yard touchdown run to shrink that lead down to 42-35 with 10:23 left in the fourth quarter. We'll go to 6:27 left fourth quarter, and Blount finds Trey Tetzlaff again. A 29-yard touchdown pass ties the game at 42 apiece. Then the ensuing kickoff is fumbled away by Stout, and Oshkosh lands on it to give them a chance to take the lead for the first time in quite some time. And here is the field goal attempt eventually to do it. The 34-yard field goal is no good, though, and that gives Stout a chance. They drive down the field. They leave it to Coolfoot Luke. Luke Cool. Well, but wait a minute. It's a false start, and they would push him back from 19 yards to 24 yards. Luke Cool is cool and wins the game for Stout. 45-42. What a game. Brooks Blount, 24 for 43, 367 yards, 4 passing touchdowns. Adam Moen for Stout, 435 total yards, 3 passing, 2 rushing touchdowns, and Luke Cool with the game-winning field goal. Also in the WEAC, it was Whitewater at La Crosse. It was 10-0 La Crosse at halftime. Third quarter, 8:13 left. Drake Martin for Whitewater gets a 4-yard touchdown pass from Jackson Christ to make it 10-7. La Crosse still leading. We'll go to the fourth quarter, 10 minutes left. Jack Studer, there's stud in his name for a reason. 13-yard touchdown pass from Kyle Haas. 17-7 at that point. La Crosse leads. But Whitewater responds. 9 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Noah Battle, a 4-yard touchdown run. Shrinks that lead back to 17-14. But again, 1 minute later, look at this pass play from Haas to Jack Studer. 79 yards on the touchdown pass. How do you leave them open? 24-14, La Crosse leads. Whitewater's still alive, though. Brian Wilterdink gets a 21-yard touchdown pass from Jackson Christ to make it 24-21 with 7:13 left in the fourth quarter. What a ping-pong match this became in that fourth. We'll go to 3:57 left in the fourth, as Whitewater had a chance here, but Christ is intercepted by Trent Mullen, and that is ultimately going to thwart one effort here for Whitewater to tie or take the lead. But look, ultimately, 4th and 2 from the Whitewater 15 is incomplete by Kyle Haas, and it'll give the ball back to Whitewater. With 1:20 left, 3rd and 10 from the La Crosse 39. It's a sack, a strip, a fumble, and a recovery. Bodie Schanhofer is the one that lands on the ball ultimately for La Crosse, ending the game effectively and giving La Crosse the 24-21 lead. Jackson Christ, 20 for 34, 286 yards, 2 passing touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Jack Studer for La Crosse, 5 catches, 107 yards, and the 2 receiving touchdowns you saw. We move on to Monmouth versus Lake Forest, and what a game this was. 11:55 left second quarter. A.J. Jackson takes a short pass from Josh Gaska, and surely he'll be tackled. Any time now he won't be tackled. A.J. Jackson with that 47-yard touchdown makes it 14-7 Lake Forest. Then second quarter, 10:41 left. It's Braden Deem getting intercepted by Thomas DeCesaro. That's a big play for Lake Forest as it leads to another A.J. Jackson touchdown, this time a 1-yard run to make it 21-7, Lake Forest leading. But Monmouth would come back. 2:26 left, second quarter. Chase Newman, a 34-yard touchdown pass from Braden Dean makes it 21-14. Monmouth still trailing. Toward the end of the first half, Josh Gaska is intercepted by Ethan James, giving Monmouth one more chance before halftime to maybe tie this game, and they actually do with 31 seconds left. It's Nate Thornton getting a 5-yard touchdown pass from Braden Dean. 21 apiece would be the halftime score. Third quarter, 6 minutes into it, Nate Rublick continues Monmouth's run here with a 5-yard touchdown run. 28-21, the Scots lead. We'll go third quarter, 2:34 left. It's Monmouth intercepting Gasquet again on fourth down. It's Derek Chandler this time with that interception. They weren't able to score, though, and eventually Lake Forest would have it a 17-play, 9-minute drive into the fourth quarter with 3:50 left, but this 4th and 6th play falls incomplete, so they come away with no points on that long drive. We'll fast forward. The last play before the 2-minute timeout is a punt by Monmouth, but look at A.J. Jackson go, returning it 59 yards. He fumbles it, but it is recovered by Lake Forest, and it gets the ball to the 15-yard line of Monmouth. Minute 10 left, 2 plays later, it's A.J. Jackson with a 9-yard touchdown run. It's tied, 28-28. Monmouth decides to go for it in their own territory with 38 seconds left, 4th and 1. Rublick gets no gain on the play, and Lake Forest gets the ball back in great field position. A.J. Jackson, 2 plays later, the 6-yard touchdown run makes it 35-28. Lake Forest with a miracle comeback and lead here. And 3rd and 3 left here for Monmouth. The last chance, Braden Dean is sacked. That would do it. Lake Forest wins the Midwest Conference 35-28. Braden Dean, 16 for 30, 221 yards, 2 passing touchdowns, and an interception. A.J. Jackson, 236 total yards, 4 rushing, 1 receiving touchdown, and Lake Forest wins that Pool A bid. We'll finish in Regions 4 through 6 with Marietta at Mount Union. Second quarter, 5 minutes into it, Connor Vierstra gets a 1-yard touchdown run to make it 14-7, Marietta leading the game. But before halftime, 3:28 left, Matt Anderson, 10 yards from Noah Boudry, ties the game, 14 apiece, and that's what halftime would look like. 6 minutes into the second half, look at this punt. It looks like it was blocked by Marietta's Xander Stroop. It eventually falls into the hands of Mount Union, but it is Marietta's ball. They can't come away with points, though, because watch what happens here as Vierstra gets a short pass off, and Evan Gandy can't hold on to the ball. Whether or not forward progress was stopped is an interesting question, but it is Mount Union's ball at their own 5-yard line. No points given up there. 5 minutes after that, though, Dawson Snyder, 19-yard touchdown pass from Vierstra, makes it 21-14, Marietta leading. We'll go to the fourth quarter. Deep into it, 4:54 left, Tyler Echeverry gets a 51-yard touchdown run to tie the game for Mount Union, 21 apiece. We'll go 32 seconds left, fourth quarter. Mount Union's Tyrell Sanders, what a catch, what a job getting a foot in bounds. The 27-yard touchdown pass from T.J. DeShields, who was in for Noah Boudry, injured earlier in the game, makes it 28-21 at that point, Mount Union leading. Here's the last play of the game as Vierstra gets a completion and they try the lateral game. Eventually, an illegal forward pass is called. Mount Union knows they've won at this point, and it was indeed a win of the OAC title and a Pool A bid, 28-21. Connor Vierstra, 26 for 38, 266 yards, 2 passing, 1 rushing touchdown. But Tyler Echeverry for Mount Union, 12 rushes, 116 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns, including that big one in the fourth quarter. And as I said, Mount Union wins the Pool A bid. Well, there was a lot of competition for Game of the Week there. The whole Brockport-Cortland situation. As I'm driving back from there, you're telling me, hey, you got to go to this Lake Forest game. Hey, you got to go to this Mount Union game. Hey, the WEAC again. It's like, you're never safe, it seems like, when you're reveling in one game's finish. These other ones are going on, but that A.J. Jackson, JB, incredible. As you prep to talk to us about other 4 through 6 games here, A.J. Jackson is just a superstar in my book.
Yeah, and I was this close to naming him my offensive MVP. He did score all 5 touchdowns for the Foresters, and he is just something else. He's going to make them a tough team to beat in the playoffs. But yeah, we saw, kind of elsewhere in, in regions 4 through 6, St. John's wins punched their ticket to the MEAC championship this Saturday against Bethel. Platteville won pretty convincingly, so they're now in control of their destiny and could potentially win the WEAC. We'll see what happens there because that conference has been so crazy. Wartburg won the ARC with a 24-14 win over Dubuque. Hope won the MIAA with a 38-7 win over Calvin. Northwestern beats Greenville and punches their ticket to the playoffs by winning the UMAC conference. On the other slides, I want to point out St. Norbert beating Lakeland. I mean, it seems like these guys are pretty much a lock for the Lakefront Bowl at this point from the NACC, just based on how that's shaking out. And it could very well be a rematch against Monmouth, who they played last year. Elsewhere, St. John Carroll wins 56-0, and they have a big game against Marietta this weekend. I know some John Carroll fans have been reaching out to you, Frank, basically kind of asking, hey, like, do we have a shot here if we beat Marietta? Maybe, it's going to be razor thin. Mount St. Joe's beats Manchester. We thought that might be for the HCAC title, but I kind of forgot that they haven't played Rose-Hulman yet, and so that'll be this weekend. Rose-Hulman only has 1 loss in conference, and this is effectively an elimination game for that championship there. And I think that does it for regions 4 through 6.
Well, for those of you that want more information about Texas of Trinity, unfortunately, we're done here for this portion of our show. Darn it. But that was crunch time for week number 10 of a 2024 Division III college football season.
Well played.
But, JB, you might have some MVPs from Texas of Trinity, right? Right? I mean, that school is unstoppable. Well, on this show, at least.
Yeah, well, I mean, Tyler in the Huddle will be, in my Hall of Fame for D3 football forever. Love that guy. One of my favorite kickers and people I've ever met doing this crazy thing. But I went a little heavy because we had so much riding on this Cortland-Brockport game. You had to give some shout outs to these guys. I'll start off, in the middle here. Senior place kicker Mike Beloga with the game-winning field goal that just barely made it over the crossbar. Frank had the perfect video shot, and you can see it's like a couple of feet away from doinking off the bottom rung there. But hey, he did his job. He helped his team get the win. And another guy who did his job was senior quarterback Zach Boyes. He accounted for almost 470 total yards in that game, and they needed every single one of them. I think they picked up something like 29 or 30 first downs. I mean, Zach it's like I said, it was like the Stag Bowl. He refused to lose that game, made the plays he had to, and, as far as I'm concerned, I know that this will rattle some people out there. He's still the best quarterback in the nation. I don't care about stats and numbers of touchdowns, but when you see this guy play and the way he played in Virginia that December night, just saying, this guy is something special, and I'm curious to see if they can go on another run here. Last but not least, on defense, I wanted to give a shout out to senior linebacker Charlie Patterson, who had a big game against Mary Hardin Baylor. I think he accounted for 3 sacks, 4.5 tackles for loss, 12 total tackles. This guy was all over the field making plays. And I think what we've seen with this Cowboys team, especially as they get ready for a playoff run, they might have to lean in on this defensive side of the ball a little more to get deep into the playoffs for sure. So guys like Charlie are going to be ones to keep an eye on. I mean, Kyle Brown, he's a great quarterback. They've got a lot of offensive firepower. But it seems like the last couple of weeks, Frank, the Cowboys have been kind of a little bit iffy there on offense, and their defense has had to carry them. And Charlie Patterson definitely was a big part of that on Saturday for that win.
Going back, it's funny you bring up the video of the field goal of Cortland with 27 seconds left because I got to be honest with you, I was so nervous during that whole thing, and they tried to ice him and all that stuff, so it took longer than just what you're seeing on video normally. But I was just so scared to miss the shot. And as you said, I ended up being in the perfect position there because I usually hang out either center right or center left to go diagonal to the angle of where, basically, of the kicker, and then, try to go up from there to, catch the ball. Lost the ball for, all of a quarter second before I get it back in frame. And then to basically almost get doinked myself in the whole thing because I was not that far from where the ball landed. We got one there. It reminded me of the moments of last year with the whole Will J situation, keeping the camera in the right spot, because that too was one of those ultimate moments in a football game where it was coming all down to that. Muhlenberg and Mount Union a few years ago, they missed the field goal, go into overtime. It is nerve-wracking because it's not about us even. It's about them. It's about catching the moment from Mike Beloga. There's a Brockport camera on it. Sure, that you'll have that memory somehow, some way, most likely. But then you hear, hey, thanks for getting the interception from Najee Lubin because they didn't have that on the Brockport video. And I didn't realize that, and I barely kept that in frame for that one. But, it's great to be able to give these back to these kids, these players, these kids. I'm 48, okay? I give it away. But it's just great to give it to these players and their families to be able to savor after the game. That's why we do what we do with the Saturday coverage. We know you're not as much watching it during the game on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it, but we know from all the reactions we get after the fact that the players are just eating it up, the coaches and their families, and that's why we do it. That's why we spend hundreds of dollars and everything else or more. This is not a cheap trip coming up this Saturday. I'm going to Indianapolis, going to technically Newcastle, Indiana, for the Monin Bell game. My first time ever out there. It's the first Region 4 game I'm attending, at least in the Region 4 location being played, DePaul in this case. And Wabash at DePaul is a huge game. We think when we look at things here with Wabash at around number 30, that a loss by them will be another razor-thin situation, although a loss to DePaul shouldn't hurt them horribly. What we've learned is that losses are artificially way too costly, no matter who you're playing ultimately, because of the way the system got set up. So Wabash might play their way out. And again, you got to ask yourself, like Brockport's asking, is this system fair based on that fact? Regardless, we got to play a football game first before we can really even have that discussion. So Wabash at DePaul will be the game I'm attending on Saturday for the Monin Bell. You've seen NPI JP Williams. It's almost that time of season to talk to the guys at the NCAA. But JB, you have seen the NPI. What jumped out at you? What are your concerns here? You go to Twitter if you need some specifics from us, because we've been giving team-by-team stuff as we've been asked to. And I've shown how the math works, and people are like, what the hell are you talking about? But it's interesting. What do you see?
Well, the things that I'm really curious about are these teams that are like 36 through 40, right? Because you take Wesleyan out of the equation. The NESCAC champ is not going to be. They're at 31, right? So, technically you could say that Co is 31, Center's 32, Lutheran 33, King's 34. So UWL is technically 35, and we've been saying that for a couple weeks now. That's pretty much the cutoff line. And for a while there, I was really feeling pretty certain that because of all the carnage going on in Wisconsin, that there would only be two teams from that conference that would get in. And now it seems possible that maybe the Eagles could just sneak right in on the line, which would be a big deal in certain respects. And then, I look also here too at 37, really 36, which is UMHB. Like, if somebody up above, like Wabash, loses, do they sneak in too, or does Wabash not really fall down that far? The other thing that was weird, Frank, is I noticed that DePaul went from like 9 to 12, and all they did was win. I thought that maybe the Tigers could creep into the top 8 and knock out Springfield, but because of this coming out where they went down, it seemed I was a little surprised by that. So, I mean, it is what it is. I think Salisbury being number one is quite interesting. I don't think they're even ranked in the top 5 or 6 in the D3 football, top 25 poll. So, you would have thought that a team like North Central or maybe St. John's would have been the number 1 overall seed, but this is what we're getting. Cortland's sitting at 5. The defending national champions have won 22 games in a row. I don't know. So, the robots are
let me take a few things here.
But,
yeah, let me take a few things you brought up here. First, if St. John's wins against Bethel, my projection is that St. John's will go back to number 1, just based on who these other teams face. Bethel will provide a good amount of NPI boost again for St. John's. Although, remember, when you beat a team, their win value drops because Bethel drops from that loss. Again, losses just don't benefit you, period, or even if they could, they won't. And they will always have a negative effect on you, even if you're playing over your head. That's just the way this system was built. And so Bethel's numbers will drop a little bit, but obviously St. John's will benefit in some format from their numbers. You bring up Mary Hardin Baylor. Mary Hardin Baylor's problem is that they only have 4 countable wins, so they don't get to drop any wins. And a win against Howard Payne is not going to help them again. And as a result, they will drop. Their numbers will drop here. And so they don't need just 1 team or 2 teams to lose. They probably need about 3 or 4 teams to lose to even have a whisper of a chance in this situation. That's just the reality, again, that every other team can drop a win result that doesn't help them. Mary Hardin Baylor can't. The minimum wins is 5, and they only have 4 countable wins currently. When it comes to teams, and we saw a lot of this back and forth like Wheaton, people are like, well, all they need is a couple of these things to happen, but they also miss the fact that behind Wheaton are teams that could jump them. And that's the thing you got to look out for, really, is that if you're playing a competitor that is, let's say a mid-pack competitor, and somebody behind you is playing a stronger competitor, they're going to have an advantage because of the gain they'll make in their NPI ultimately, where they might be able to jump you. And that's what, when you see a team win week to week and drop, one of 2 things or both have happened in that situation. Either the rest of their schedule kind of blew it, and so their NPI dropped a little bit because the teams they already played let them down, or somebody from behind them jumped them. And so that, I think, is what happened with DePauw more than anything else. They didn't drop much, I don't believe, in their number, but I think what happened was essentially they got jumped by other teams that were playing, like Lake Forest jumps them because Lake Forest played Monmouth. Really good team, according to the NPI numbers, right? Monmouth's still sitting at number 40, I believe it is. So those are the things that'll happen. So you don't just look at the teams above you. You got to look at the teams below you and see who they're playing. Later this week, we're going to give you a full listing of the top 60 teams, who they're playing, and the general implications of those things. We will post it on Twitter. We'll talk more about it on Friday, obviously. But that's the stuff you need to know. I know you're seeing a lot of charts and graphs and, these listings of, teams, and brackets. Some teams listed twice and all these other things and mock brackets. Don't think the people producing any of this know anything more than you do at this point, or us, or anybody else. Okay? These are prognostications and only that. What I'm trying to do when I'm approaching this on Twitter, and JB knows this, because we talk about it frequently, is I'm trying to give you the real world view of how it works. I want you at home to understand the math behind it, so you can see a game and look at these charts and be like, oh, that's what happens here. Now, none of us are going to be able to tell you when you wake up Sunday who's going to be in the playoffs, even based on 5 or 6 results. There's a lot of other results that are going to play into it ultimately. So nobody knows. I don't even know why people create mock brackets at this point, because they're so useless. My appendix may have more use than some of these mock brackets, I'll be honest with you. But that said, we want you to understand the implications and what goes into this. And, you're all justified when you come on Twitter and say to us, well, no, I think Wheaton has a better chance than you think. Sure, but you may be right, actually. You might. Great. But we also have to look at the things below Wheaton to understand fully what Wheaton's real chances are. And that's how NPI works. There's no human that overrides NPI. So the teams that are going to be picked are the teams that are in the top 35-ish slots because of the Pool A bids that are outside those top 35 that we know of, or outside top 40, or however you want to look at it. So just, fasten your seatbelt here. Any last thoughts on NPI before we talk about what's next for our show?
No, well, and we kind of skipped over it in the scoreboard thing, but yeah, I mean, North Park lost to Wash U. That's Wheaton's last game. So realistically, the Vikings are going to end up 5-5, assuming that they lose to Wheaton, who's favored. And so, Wheaton, sitting right now at the 39th, really 38th position, they may not get enough of a bump from beating a 500 team. And with other stuff, if Oshkosh loses, that'll ding them too. There's all of these things that could go in the wrong way so I mean, these projections I've seen have Wheaton in, but I'm still not 100% sold that they're going to make it. And so maybe they'll end up in the Isthmus Bowl against, the Warhawks or maybe the Eagles, depending. It does seem like, barring something crazy, because I know the Eagles have a pretty winnable game on Saturday, so they should theoretically, be okay, but at this point, anything's possible.
I mean, you got to feel for Brockport, and I've said this, and I will continue to say it.
It does suck for them.
Any other year in the 32-team structure we used to have, I think Brockport gets in. I really do.
Absolutely. From the Empire 8. And I don't want to hear all these people that are saying that, Cortland doesn't deserve number 1 votes because they almost lost to an unranked team. I'll tell you what, that Brockport team would probably beat every single CCIW team, maybe except for now, North Central, because they're on a different level. But that Brockport team is really good, and just because they're unranked is a really bad look for fans to be thrown out there that the Empire 8's a better conference than yours, guys. Sorry.
By the way, Brockport's ranked now after that performance, so at least the voters appreciated it, what happened there on Sunday. Good. So I think they made it into number 25, and yes, they appeared on my ballot for the first time this season, and I think I put around 17 or 18 when I put my ballot in. Okay, what's next for our show? We said Twitter, we're going to have some stuff throughout this week for the remainder of the week. We already have released, by this point, our Cortland interviews from Saturday. And we talk about Cortica as some of the discussion in those interviews, so they are relevant to what's moving forward here. And so we've got that. We've got our Friday live show. A couple of great guests will be on. We'll talk more NPI and have some entertaining stuff as well. We've already begun arranging for this, too. Saturday, my coverage at DePaul, JB's coverage throughout the day from D3 World, we'll call it, D3 Nation on Twitter or X. Sunday, we are not doing an interview with the chair because why? Why would we bother at this point? We understand what they're doing, and nobody's going to... Yeah, they're not picking anybody. All they're doing is rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic, basically, as to where they're putting the teams on the brackets, okay? So we're not going to waste your time. We're not going to waste their time anymore. But we will have a reaction show on Sunday evening where we kind of talk about any surprises about the bracketing, any disappointments, any positive stuff. We will have on Monday our ECAC Bowl announcement show live at noon on Monday Eastern Time. And then on Tuesday or Wednesday, we'll have Crunch Time to go over the games that got us in the first place to that point. And then I have no idea what we're going to be doing for playoffs. I don't know what we're going to be allowed to do with respect to the ESPN Plus situation coming up too because of rights and this and that. And so I don't know.
I want to go to a game. I'm really going to try to. I'm going to really try to go to a round 2 game. If it's like Hopkins hosting Hobart, I would love to be there for that and provide coverage of it for personal as well as the obvious reasons. But yeah, I'm hoping to catch at least a couple playoff games. I'm talking to you about being at the Stag Bowl again in the January, the New Year, which is going to be weird, but hey, should be some fun road trips coming up.
Yeah, we got some good ideas, or some exciting new ideas for how we're going to bring you the Stag Bowl even. So stay tuned for that. We're just working out the kinks on the tech that'll be required to pull some of this off. But I think we've got some good foundational layers set for how we can make it exciting and interactive as well for you at home. So stay tuned for all that. Let's kind of let everybody go here. But first, JB's final thoughts on Week 10 and wrapping into the first looks at Week 11. Go ahead.
Well, I think Frank was just trying to be nice to me this week because I went 8-8 on my picks. We didn't flash the scoreboard up yet, I don't believe. Now it probably is. So this is just once again a reminder for all the different predictions and models and all this stuff is like at the end of the day, anything can happen in a football game. And so predictions are just that. Like you have just a chance of being wrong as you are being right. And so, wasn't my greatest week. It was actually my worst week of the season, but hey, that's how it goes sometimes. Maybe I'll do better in week 11. We'll find out on Friday, or actually we'll find out on Saturday once all the results are in. So I think it's going to be a fun final Saturday of the regular season. 10 teams get to clinch conference championships and pool A bids, and then Sunday at 5 p.m. the NCAA is going to tell us how this new system is going to look, and we'll take it from there, and I'm sure we'll have some comments or critiques, at the end of the day, though, if you don't realize it, this is how it's going to be for the next, this year and then the next year. It just is what it is. So we're just going to have to hope for the best. There are some cool things about it. They're like, maybe 3 PAC teams, maybe 2 Northwest Conference teams, maybe 3 WEAC teams, hey, that wouldn't always happen in the past. So 3 SAA teams, Texas of Trinity could get in, Frank. We'll see.
You stole my thunder because I was going to say, tune in Friday to see if JB picks the Millsaps at Texas of Trinity game that we're all excited about now, thanks to his new play on names right there. Well, let's just end this pain for you at this point and say, folks, we'll see you on Friday. We'll see you on X in the meantime. Stay tuned for a lot of stuff from us as we conclude. My God, it feels like we just started the 2024 Division III regular season in football. Take care.